Look at that plant. I want you to know that everything was grown in my garden. Don't touch that plant!
Is it poisonous?
She'll become part of the plant.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Flower Power Garden Hour. I'm your host, Marlene, and this is a question and answer episode. So joining me to keep me on track is Joe. Joe, say hello.
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 I forgot to put my headphones on.
So you almost didn't hear me.
No, I can hear you with it.
I know. It was a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, wait a minute. Can I not wear earphones all day long and she won't hear me?
Those are ear muffs that I wear the rest of the day.
That's right. Yeah. Actually, you have your AirPods in most of the time. You can't hear me anyways. Yeah. Don't shake your head. All right. Question and answer episode. Got some good questions, I think.
Okay. How about anything going on around the garden? What's going on? Any sort of update?
So the big news is that I'm just going to break it here that I got a laminar flow hood.
Yeah.
And that is to do tissue culture. That is basically where you propagate from the smallest meristematic area cells of a plant and grow them into plants. You could do it from seeds too. The reason being is some plants that are very rare. They're rare because they're difficult to cultivate. So I'm going in with a Gianluca who was on the Succulent podcast, and he has a really good succulent collection. We'll do things other than succulents, but that's sort of what we really want to do. It'll be fun. So yeah, we finally got the laminar flow hood. You built a stand for it. You have to get a really clean room because being sterile is really key. Of course, we keep putting cats back in that, not in the room, but in the back place where it's at, including our newest catch. You caught this one this time.
No, you caught it. I found it.
You found it. Poor thing was dragging its leg, and we trapped it and brought it to the vet, and they said it was an old injury or even an injury born with it. So they're not going to cut the leg off, but we're going to try to get it adapted to our property. It's probably feral. Oh, it is feral. We know that. But anyways, going back to the tissue culture and laminar flow, the idea is to just propagate these rare different plants. So trial and error should be fun. Should be interesting. We have a whole list of plants that we want to do, but we're going to start with ones that obviously we could sacrifice readily because you don't want to ever chop into a plant that just has one growth point and that's it, especially with succulents. So that's going on. Gardens poking away. It's February and I realize I need to order some seeds, get some seeds started inside. I think like last year, we have really good nurseries around, a really good source of a lot of the tomatoes and pepper varieties that I want. So I'm only going to really buy seeds for things that I can't find. But I'm sort of finding the whole starting from seed, it doesn't really benefit unless I can't find the plants at nurseries. But some, specialty nurseries like Morning Sun Herb Farm, where I get a lot of my tomatoes, grow some great ones. I could find Brad's wild boar tomatoes various places, but usually it's peppers that are harder to find. So I'll peruse the catalogs and buy some seeds, but do so early, like now, because you don't want them sold out. But, I don't start everything from seed. I don't find the need for that.
Did you get any of those really hot peppers from the Farouche pepper guy?
I did. I grew some last year, and I'm trying to overwinter some too.
Okay.
So yeah, they were very pretty.
I had dinner with somebody from work a couple weeks ago, and he likes really hot peppers.
Okay.
So I told him about those.
Yeah. I mean, really hot peppers. I can't handle really, really hot peppers. I like spicy, but they're beautiful and pretty. And if anyone's wondering, Farouche peppers, I had him on an episode. He's a pepper breeder back in Kentucky, Tennessee, somewhere back there.
Georgia, Kentucky?
Not Georgia. I remember.
In the Appalachians.
Yeah. And he grows huge pepper plants. Crazy. So we talked about how to grow peppers. So I forget what episode it is, but if you just peruse and look up Farouche peppers, you'll find it. So that's it. That's the news for me. I'm taking up skiing. Been twice, so taken up.
Basically a professional.
I'm basically a professional. I'm going to be glued to the Olympics and just like, I could do that. If I break something, you'll have to do most of the gardening for me. Okay, that went over well.
Mm-hmm. Hey, every time I've broken anything, I have not pawned off my jobs on you.
No, because you don't even go to the doctor and get diagnosed as broken until months later.
Whatever.
And then by then it's like healed really badly and there's nothing they could do.
Again, none of it has impacted you is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, and I mentioned I got a bubbly car.
I think you already did.
Did I mention my bubbly car? Okay. I'm very excited about getting my bubbly car up and going. I mean, it's going to be quite a while.
Like 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
A lot
okay.
of projects before that.
Yeah. Well, can we move this one to the front?
No.
Please?
No.
Okay. All right. Let's answer some questions.
Okay, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm going to start with one from Cindy.
Okay.
When is the best time to add fish emulsion to my outdoor plants? I just put these back outside. Most of them are succulents.
Okay. All right. So sounds like she had succulents. She brought them inside for the winter. She's moving them outside and she wants to know when to give them fish emulsion. Okay. I'm going to address the whole succulent moving inside thing. I just gave a talk for San Joaquin Master Gardeners and on succulents because I get a question a lot. And, Cindy's not asking this question, but it's something I need to address. Like, how do you know to move your succulents inside for the winter? And unless you know the name, it is a good idea to err on the side of caution, bringing them in. When you go to the store or you're given one, a lot of times at nurseries, they're just like, it just says like assorted succulent. And if you buy it outside, it's a good chance it could grow outside, but not always. And so succulents have a big, big range of temperatures they could handle. So when in doubt, yes, bring inside. They could handle the low lights for a few months. And then move them outside. The main thing with succulents outside is don't let them be bombarded with rain if possible. If they're in a pot, don't let them sit in the standing water in a tray. Sometimes the soil gets so sogged that it's not even draining. You have standing water in a pot, so drain that out. So she's moving them outside. And now's okay. We're still going to get some cold temperatures. It was still cold. So if you are truly worried about a plant being hit by frost, I would still wait because moving them inside from warmth to even outside when it's 35, 40 is a big shock. So if you can hold off. Now the question of when to fertilize. Okay.
Question.
Yes.
Okay, this whole shock thing that you just mentioned, is that a real thing? Like when you're moving them, do you have to acclimate them, or is it better to acclimate them to like a gradient of temperatures? Or is it worse if you bring them from inside to outside? I
always feel it's worse when you bring them from inside to outside because it's the cold and plants grow leaves dependent on their temperature. So it's a little more important sometimes with leafy plants. The cuticles building up, the thickness of the leaf is building up based on temperature and light it's getting inside. So sometimes when you move a plant directly to outside, it could shock it. That's why when you have like tomato plants, you start moving them, easing them outside. Here, we don't have to do that so much as they do, it sounds like back east when temperatures are still really cold and they're getting, acclimating them as temperatures go up. But it's good practice to wait until temperatures are a little bit warmer or keep them close to the house so they're not just right out where they're exposed just because of the leaf, basically how the leaf's made. Okay, now addressing the fish emulsion. Fish emulsion's a mild nitrogen fertilizer. It's great. It's roughly about like a 4-1-1 or a 5-1-1. That's nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, has calcium, magnesium. So it's a good one. It's a good fertilizer, mild fertilizer, hard to burn your plants with that. But with succulents, you always want to fertilize when they're actively growing. So most of your succulents are going to not be actively growing unless, of course, it's a winter grower. We have a whole bunch of winter growers at work. These are South African pelargoniums. Some of these are like Athonas. So most of them are going to be South Africans that are winter growing plants. And you'll know if they're winter growing because they're probably blooming, putting on new leaves. A lot of the South African leafy ones go dormant in the summer. And so if they drop their leaves in the summer, it's a winter growing. So fertilize when they're actively growing. So hold off if they're not actively growing for another month or two, and then you could fertilize them. So that's my advice to Cindy.
All right. That's pretty clear. Okay, Gretchen. Gretchen just transplanted artichokes, and she said when she did that, it sounds like they fell down on the ground or kind of laid over. She gave them some water. Is there anything else she can do to help them perk back up?
No, that's about it. They're really actually tough plants. So meaning they'll pull through just fine. Of course, never want to transplant them when it's really, really hot. Usually you want to transplant them when they're somewhat actively growing. So she could have held off a little bit longer, but they're fine. So really when you transplant something, just keep it moist. Soil probably had a lot of moisture already, so just one heavy watering and it's cold. So they're really not super actively growing at all. So that's fine. Remember, the B1 transplant is just a myth. It's not going to help transplant at all, so don't use B1. There's nothing else you could do. And what's probably going to happen is, they fell down because you just disturbed the root system and they lost water and they're not able to pick it up. In no time at all, new leaves will grow from the center. So the outer ones that fell down, they may or may not perk back up. But if they don't perk back up, that's okay. If some of the center leaves are okay, they'll start growing once they set their roots down. So it's not a problem. They'll be fine.
So relax about the artichokes.
Yeah, relax.
Okay. All right, Michelle. So Michelle just moved into a new house, or new to them, and I think she sent you a picture of a tree.
She did.
Okay. Well, she's wondering if that tree's dead. She said it didn't lose its leaves, and it looks like they should have fallen off by now.
Yes. So it's a scarlet oak.
Yes, what?
And just acknowledging that she sent me a picture and I saw
it.
it. It's a scarlet oak, and they're notorious. I think it's the city of Elk Grove, which is south of us. It was sort of a new-ish area. And they planted a whole bunch of scarlet oaks. And all through the winter and fall, you see these trees with these dead leaves sticking on. And people really do think it's dead. It looks like, okay, there's leaves that are dead. Most of us think your tree is either going to lose its leaves or it'll keep leaves on and they'll be green. But there are some trees, and the most common one around us that does this is the scarlet oak, and there's some other trees. So what happens is, for some reason, and I don't think scientists even know, is the abscission zone. So there's an area where the leaf sort of meets the stem, where water basically gets shut off, then the leaf dies, and then the leaf falls off. But it's not a complete abscission zone, and so the leaves sort of hang on. They do fall off when the new buds start pushing them off, then they fall off. We see that on a few other plants. Like at work, we have Aristolochia, which is this tropical vining plant. There's a native one as well, but we deal with the tropical ones, and it won't drop its leaves. And it's very annoying because it needs constant cleanup, because you just look at it, it has all these dead leaves on it. So you have to go up, and they don't even just pull off very easy. We sort of have to crumble them and pull them off. So there are some plants that just don't drop them until new leaves come along and push them off. And I always like to sing the song that there's abscission zone, but ethylene goes to it too. And ethylene is the death hormone that causes leaves to drop as well. So, highway to the danger zone. I like to say ethylene to the abscission zone. It's great, huh, Joe? I know. Students look at me like I'm crazy, especially if they've never seen Top Gun, which really, when I hear that, I'm just like, we're lost. The next generation is just lost. If you have not seen the movie Top Gun at least 15 times, I don't know what's going on. Yeah, but anyways, ethylene to the abscission zone. That's what I'm just gonna say there. So yes, not dead, scarlet oak. Looks like a pin oak, the leaves do, but it's scarlet oak. It's Quercus coccinea. All right, good trees besides that. Good oak trees besides that. If you like that look, but you want like leaves falling off, do the red maple instead. So, all right, move on, Joe.
Well, speaking of red maple,
okay,
Brenda, she puts all of her red maple fall leaves and grass clippings in their garden beds to stop weeds from growing over the winter. What she wants to know is, should she cultivate it into the soil or remove it? She's thinking about cultivating it for the nitrogen and possibly spoil amendment properties.
She meant soil. Did you really think she meant spoil? And possible soil amendment properties.
Yeah, I had no idea what spoil amendments were.
You're used to watching Oak Island where they have the spoils from the...
A little bit.
Yeah, no, soil, Joe. Okay.
Hey, there could be spoil amendments.
There could be. Yeah, possible spoil amendment properties. All right. So yeah, I mean, she's basically creating a compost bin in her garden. So I like the idea of using this to smother, upcoming weeds. You just always have to make sure it's thick enough, right? Else the weeds are just going to poke through. Sounds like it was if it was working for her. Yeah, don't pull it out. So grass clippings, when you first use them, they're green, rich in nitrogen. That's your nitrogen source that you put in a compost bin or in your soil. And then the red maple fall leaves, they're your carbon, they're your dead. So, when you compost, you have to have a good ratio of carbon to nitrogen, higher carbon than nitrogen, I believe. I should know that. So when you're adding it to the soil, sure, turn it under. So the one problem, though, is if it was just all carbon material, all dead material, and not nitrogen, something still has to break that down. Something still has to break the grass clippings down. And what I mean by breaking down, meaning convert it to a source of nitrogen that plants use. Plants use ammonium and nitrates as their source. So all these microorganisms in the soil use nitrogen that's in the soil to break down all this material, then to release more nitrogen. So if you have a lot of just carbon dead material you're putting in there, it's always a good idea to add a little nitrogen fertilizer like the fish emulsion to replenish, because then you're sort of depleting the nitrogen from the soil. But go ahead, mix it under or leave it on top and it'll break down. But if you turn it under, it's getting close to the microorganisms. One thing is grass clippings, and don't use any weeds that have weed seed, or of course anything like Bermuda grass that will just start growing from any parts of it, or if something's been sprayed with an herbicide, then you don't want to use those type of grass clippings. Even though it does break down, you just still want to be careful. So yeah, go ahead. It's great for smothering weeds, and it's great to add something into your soil. But just remember, it takes time and it takes nitrogen to break this stuff down. So sometimes you do need to add, if you're planting right away, you need to add a little bit of a nitrogen source, because the nitrogen right there is going to be taken up a bit to break this nitrogen down by all these microorganisms. So that's it.
Okay. So you said you have to make sure to add it thick enough. Right?
For weed smothering.
Okay. That is 4 inches, 5 inches?
3 to 5 inches.
3 to 5 inches.
3 to 5 inches. If you just, sprinkle grass clippings, it's not going to smother the weeds. Some people are like, oh, if you lay something like that on top, you could have bad bugs underneath, but, like earwigs and peel bugs. But you're also going to have earthworms coming up closer to the soil. You're also going to sort of buffer your soil from compaction from the rain. And so, it's a trade-off. But, once you start moving that around, it'll be fine.
All right. Sounds good. Okay. Last question. Scott. He says this question may be a little bit early, but how do you prepare your soil for tomatoes? Do you use manure? What is your favorite type of tomato plant?
All right. No, not too early at all. As you've heard me mention before, I'm already adding beneficial nematodes. I started that a couple months ago. That's in anticipation of having annoying cucumber beetles. But if you have, various pests besides aphids and mealybugs, any pest that has a life stage in the soil, there are some nematodes that can control, but you want to get them in the soil, get them multiplying in the soil, and have them there. So when those stages of those annoying summer pests are in the soil, they're ready to attack. Arbica Organics, I've had her on, the owner on. That's where I buy mine. You could find there's different strains of it that will control different types of pests. So that's something people don't think, but that is amending your soil. That is getting your soil healthy. And And no, I just mentioned that it takes a while for microorganisms to break down organic material that you're putting in your soil. And that goes really for pretty much anything. So you want to add things now so the nitrogen and the nutrients, not just nitrogen, all the other nutrients are ready. So add your compost. And I like to go to a rock yard bulk. I need to buy in bulk. A rock yard has good grade compost. But of course, you could also add the planting mixes. A whole bunch of them. E.B. Stone has a planting mix and Fox Farms has a planting mix. Anything that says planting mix or soil planter mix, if you read on the back, generally it's going to be a base of compost, but it's also going to have earthworms castings, bat guano, maybe seaweed kelp. All those are sort of mild nutrients that you could put in there. You don't want to plant directly into, you want to amend your soil with. But really, I like just good compost. And then with that, I do add chicken manure because it gets a little extra nitrogen in there. Because remember, nitrogen is one of the macronutrients. It's what plants use the most. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Doesn't mean those are more important. They're just used in more abundance. And so, nitrogen it leaches through the soil, gets used up by plants a lot. What I'm also doing is I'm doing a cover crop right now of red clover. It's not blooming yet, but when it blooms, I'm cutting it down and leaving it, and that's going to turn in more nitrogen. So, that's what you think about in the fall is doing a cover crop as well. And alfalfa pellets. Alfalfa pellets are a great source of nitrogen and some micronutrients as well. So really anything that's broken down, anything you could get in the soil now that will be broken down, that will then, by the time you're ready to plant your tomatoes, say mid-April is a good time. I know people push them earlier just because you're like, hey, we're not going to have a frost. I'm going to plant them a little bit earlier. So yeah, you want time for these, all the microorganisms to work into it. But that's what I use. Just good compost, some chicken manure, alfalfa pellets. I'm adding the beneficial nematodes. I really am going to try biochar. Joe doesn't know this yet, but I'm going to have him get a 50 gallon drum and cut it, lay it on its side and cut an opening. And then that's going to be my biochar machine. And so my last episode was on biochar, or last one with the guest was on biochar. And I know sound quality wasn't so great. I heard from someone, other people, didn't seem to have a problem with it, but I get it. Joe's not very happy with the sound quality. So hopefully, but anyways, if you could listen to it, it's great. And so biochar is a great way of, putting something in your soil to retain moisture, to, basically it's a nutrient sink. It's still working out the pH though. I'm really afraid to mess with my pH. So I'm trying to find what wood is more of a neutral. So I'm still a little iffy about that, but biochar is great. So yeah, really, no, it's not too early. Now is the time. And if you if you have winter crops in, just lay the compost on top and it'll work its way in. Just because you have stuff planted in there now and you're like, well, I don't pull my winter crops out until this time, just lay the compost on top, lay the organic material on top, and it'll work its way in. Oh, my favorite type of tomato plant. Sungolds. You can't beat Sungolds. They're just they're so good. I like Brad's Atomic Grape. I like Green Zebra from the tanginess. And really, it's all different. I like growing cherry tomatoes because when I'm out in the garden, I just pick them off and eat them. But, yeah. I don't have a developed palate, so it's not like I could be like, oh, this one is this, and I don't make my own tomato sauce or anything, so it's not like I'm growing. But, I like the pretty ones, too. Like, I like Berkeley tie-dye just because it's got a really pretty colors when you cut into it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, all right. Are you just silenced because you have another chore of making me a biochar machine? That one's easy. You just have to get a steel drum, turn it on its side, and you could use your plasma cutter.
It sounds like it's just the drum has to be sealed?
On the sides.
The ends is what
it has to have ends because we have some metal, but we don't have the lids. The lids are off of it. So you want the sides because that's what holds in the Joe, you always tell me to go to YouTube and watch videos. I went to YouTube. I found this Australian guy who's like, this is just the easy way.
No, I'm trying to figure out what it looks like.
Oh, yeah.
Like, does it need baffles inside? What does it need?
What are those? What are baffles? You're baffling me with your baffles.
Well, so far it sounds like it's just a
Drum
cylinder
turned on its side.
with a hole in it.
You cut, basically the whole side's removed. So then it's just, remember the fire pit that Sherpa built for us? Small scale?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that, but bigger.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. That's an easy way. There's some where you keep them upright, and then you have a 50 steel drum on, and then you buy a 30-gallon steel drum, and you put it inside, and then you put your fire around it, and then you have holes in the bottom to do. But no, this way, this is much easier.
You're trying to get to smolder, though, right?
Yeah, you quench it with water once it gets to a certain temperature. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I like that design.
Ooh. Well, you know what? How about this? You build any design you want. Just get me something where I could make some biochar.
Great.
We have a lot of wood around. They are pruning, like, and
We
removing
do have a lot of
walnut
wood.
orange. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to look up walnuts. Everything I look up on biochar for walnuts is the walnut holes. And
Oh, really?
because, you could use byproducts.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to look up actual walnut wood. I'm pretty sure it's neutral to, but I know manzanita will get you an acidic base, but it's not like we have a lot of manzanita around here. So, but that's the one iffy thing. I'm still like, I know Dr. Dumrose was saying, it's pretty neutral, but I am hesitant because I'm reading a lot of things. But I'm going to go off her. She's, the doctor is doing all this research. But still. Anyways, on that note, so if you have questions, send them to marlenetheplantlady@gmail.com. You could post them on my Instagram or Facebook. That's Marlene the Plant Lady. So follow me on Instagram and Facebook. And my YouTube, Everything Gardening with Marlene Simon. I'm going to post one video a week if it kills me or not. And I just posted one. And I'm going to post another one soon. So follow me there. And of course, if you like this, rate and review on Apple Podcasts, and tell a friend and share it. And until next time, everyone, happy gardening.